And we're back. This is Hook and Ladder. This is, what are we calling this?
This should be like a kind of little rundown of some teams that you might want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe one, possibly two of these teams could probably make the playoffs. Some of them even aren't really being picked to do anything special by the national media. Maybe go like 8-4, 9-3. But all these teams we picked out today are teams, in our opinion, can maybe do something special if things fall right.
Yeah.
Fall in their favor. The stars align. They could have a really special season. And we're talking 10-2 type of season, 11-1, maybe even a conference championship. Like I said, if things fall in their favor.
Yeah. Still a game that they're not supposed to win.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll get started with Michigan State. What was it last season? They were 10-2 at the end of the season.
I don't even remember.
Anyway.
But, they're returning a lot of guys, on defense, mainly that the back half of the defense, returning Peyton Thorne at QB, returning their two leading wide receivers. Obviously, they lose Walker at running back, but what Mel Tucker has done this offseason, which I think is great for them, because they're not going to go out and land a bunch of high-profile recruits. They're not going to land 12, 15 guys in the ESPN top 250. They went out and got a lot of transfers, guys to fill those holes, using the transfer portal to immediately improve your roster with a lot of experienced guys. A lot of guys who got playing time at other schools, just things didn't really work out for one reason or another. Mel Tucker went and swooped a bunch of these guys up, and I think Michigan State could do some things this year. They didn't have the best of seasons last year, but I think they can definitely make some noise in the Big Ten this year. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they're going to win the thing or nothing, but like I said, these teams are teams we think you guys should be paying attention to because they could be a lot better than what they're being ranked right now in the top 25.
Don't be surprised at the end of November they got 10 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Moving right along, we're going to
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
I don't know, last couple of years, I kept waiting for them to do something. I keep hearing this Graham Mertz kid's got a phenomenal arm. He can make all the throws, student of the game, all the, things they say about kids like him that are so talented and so smart, and hadn't really done a whole lot for him. But he's back. So is their leading rusher, and Braylon Allen. Not returning a ton of guys on the team, but I feel they're in the Big Ten. Their schedule is manageable. They can eke out a couple of wins against teams they might not supposed to beat. I think they can maybe make some noise, just like Michigan State. I don't think they'll be as good as Michigan State, but they are returning a lot of guys, mainly the running back and QB, like I said, and they could definitely do something.
Mertz, year 3, maybe the light bulb goes off and he has a hell of a season.
You'd like to think so. Like I said, the last 2 seasons, it was underwhelming. I think last year was a big disappointment. I know he came in the COVID year. He looked good early, and then teams started kind of figuring him out. He had a horrible game against Northwestern, and they were in that game to win, and Northwestern eventually went to the conference championship against Ohio State. But it's just things just never really got clicking with the kid last year, and I gotta say he's going to be better this year, but you never know. However, I still think they're worthy of putting it in this video as a team to watch.
You just never know.
Make some noise.
If this is year 3, so maybe he does turn the corner and.
We gotta start over?
No, just keep on going.
All right.
Let's go to Texas A&M, the Aggies. Here we go.
Texas A&M, the whole thing with them, the recruiting and the NIL, they signed the best ever class in recruiting since recruiting rankings came out. And when you look at their roster, they're really not returning a whole lot of guys. And I wanted to put them in this episode for a reason, is I think they're going to be disappointing this year. I still think they're going to be one of the better teams in the SEC West, but they're going to rely on a lot of these young kids to come in and play. And I don't think the quarterback situation is really sorted out, in my opinion. Calzada played most of the year last year, came in when the starter got hurt. Forgot the kid's name. But Calzada, I think, is at Auburn now.
The King kid or the Bose kid?
Calzada, the quarterback.
Yeah, but saying who was the other guy that he came in for?
I forgot his name. He was another highly touted kid. But, Calzada, I thought, played phenomenal against Alabama.
All right.
But just didn't kind of live up to. I mean, he wasn't like a massive profile recruit, in my opinion. The kid from Georgia, I think he was maybe like the 20th best QB in the country. Not bad, but I think they're going to be disappointing. And I kind of wanted to put them in this video because everywhere you look, you're going to hear about how A&M is going to be great. And Jimbo Fisher, in my opinion, has got to do some stuff this year because he's replacing a lot of dudes. One of their top wideouts just got arrested not too long ago, so we'll see if that kid's suspended or not. He might have already been, I haven't seen, but I just don't see them. And they were disappointing last year. They beat Alabama. They still lost 4 games. So, I mean, I'm kind of thinking that 8-4, 9-3, with the talent they have, definitely possibility to go 10-2 or better. I just don't see it happening.
And the West is going to be better this year.
I think so.
Yeah, so, moving right along, for the Tennessee Volunteers.
Tennessee Volunteers are going to surprise some people this year. And I think a lot
so.
of people are going to be surprised to hear me say that. But returning basically almost the entire offensive line, with the exception of left tackle and Cade Mays, returning Hendon Hooker, returning some key skill guys, returning some guys on defense. And Heupel's offense is one of those deals where you don't need to sign a 5-star wide receiver or a high 4-star wide receiver. You can go into Florida, Texas, Louisiana, places like that, pull out these speedy 3-star kids, and in that offense, they can put up some numbers. Hendon Hooker, in my opinion, is not a very good quarterback. I can't tell you how many times I saw that dude overthrow wide open wide receivers on the deep routes. Give it to credit to the wideouts. They were getting open. This kid just couldn't hit him. But he can run the football. Tennessee was one of the better teams in the SEC last year at running the football. Defensively, they've got to get a lot better. They've got some pretty decent players there. Is it going to be a typical, up-tempo offense where the defense always kind of stinks? I don't know, but I still think that Tennessee probably going to finish second in the SEC East this year. That's my prediction for them. But, things fall correctly. Georgia stumbles a couple times. Tennessee's a little better than we think they are. They could easily wind up in Atlanta at the end of the season.
Right. Moving right along.
NC State. The phrase using the COVID year applies with NC State here. A bunch of dudes on the team using the COVID year, so they've got a lot of experience coming back. Most of those guys are starters. Devin Leary, the QB, very talented quarterback, expected to do a lot of great stuff. I think I've heard Josh Pate mention NC State before, possibly be in the running for a conference title. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't want to go that far. I still need to kind of look at their schedule, which I really haven't done yet. But I think they're going to be a good team. Like I said, the point of this episode is to show you guys teams that could possibly surprise you, just teams to pay attention to, and NC State's definitely one of them.
Well, we're waiting on somebody in the ACC to step up and do something. Last year it was Pitt. I mean, it's been Clemson for the past decade.
Mm-hmm. I still think Clemson's going to be really good. They got DJ coming back, Will Shipley. They lost a bunch of dudes at wide receiver, but defensively, Skolsky is gone and a few of the guys at the back end, but Miles Murphy, Brian Barisi, those dudes are all there. I still expect Clemson to be in the running, but at least with NC State and then the next team that we're probably going to talk about, or at least a team we're going to talk about in this video, is Miami.
Right.
There's other teams slowly but surely catching up to Clemson.
Yeah, and we're pulling up Miami right now. Computer's a little slow. As you know, we're doing the video today from some new digs. BrettMullen.com's got a new place, so we figured we'd try this place out tonight.
Yes, watching the kiddo today, so I couldn't leave. Miami, another team. They've been recruiting very well into Mario. Van Dyke, returning quarterback, played very well last year. They got a lot of guys returning. Like I said, bringing in a lot of talented players, a couple of transfers as well. Really, really looking forward to seeing what that defensive secondary can do. I like their schedule. To me, it's very manageable. And I think they're a little bit further ahead than what NC State is. I think they're more of an option to compete for the conference title.
Yeah.
Once again, things fall favorably for them. They could easily finish 10-2 or better and play for the conference championship come early December. But I really like what they did last year. Once Van Dyke came in, I forgot what's his face, the dude who probably never should be playing quarterback in my opinion anyway, De'Aaron King. That dude just runs around, put him at slot wide receiver, and that's going to be his position going forward. If he's even at the next level, which I don't know if he is, but you can get away with that when he was playing at Houston. And even though I don't think the ACC is the best defensive conference in the world, you could tell when they played Alabama specifically in the first game that he just wasn't ready. And I don't really think it had anything to do with his knee injury. But once Van Dyke came in, I think they rattled off 5 wins in a row. And they looked really, really good doing it. So I expect some big things out of Miami this year. About damn time.
Well, that first year that Rick was there, they rattled off 10-0, and then they lost the last 2, and then the wheels fell off.
Then the very next year, I think he was that was his last season. They were terrible. And I just watched the U on TV about, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And just thinking, how Miami's going to be a lot better this year. I'm like, college football is more fun when teams like Miami, Florida State are better. Teams like Michigan are better. It's just Texas is better. USC, it's a much more fun game when a lot of these other teams that have been down, perennial powerhouse has been down when they're back up.
And, when those programs are doing well, that means they're getting talent and taking away from some of these other dominant programs, kind of even the playing field out.
Which they're doing. I mean, hell, just like A&M, this cycle, Miami's using NIL brilliantly, and they're snagging dudes that other schools thought were locks to them. So I got to give them credit. Not breaking any rules.
No. Playing the game. Oklahoma State.
Should have won the conference championship last year and played in the playoff. But the guy decided to bounce it outside, which he was not fast enough to do. I still think if he cut it in, he was big and strong enough to overpower that kid and go in the end zone. But he decided to go out wide, got tackled, game over, they lost. Yeah. But Spencer Sanders is a pretty good quarterback. In that conference, he does very well throwing the football. He also does very well running the football. I kind of want to see what they're like in the playoffs when they actually face a legit defense, see how he can do. I mean, didn't really do a whole lot. Kind of shit the bed pretty much most of that conference championship game against Baylor. They kind of came out in that last few minutes and played well. But got a lot of guys returning, a lot of guys on offense, a lot of guys on defense. Gundy always has that team competitive.
Oh, yes. Man, I'm 40.
I like him. There's been a lot of controversial moments with that guy. Yeah. But look at Oklahoma State's record for the past 10, 12 years. They're always competitive. The years they're kind of predicted to be pretty good, like this year, they always find a way to lose 2 to 3 games, 2 of which are games they should not lose. But last year I thought was that year they went and beat some teams I didn't think they were going to beat, and they made the conference championship. Don't see why they can't do it again this year.
It's like they lose to Iowa State and they end up beating Oklahoma, or the other way around. It's just something stupid every year.
Exactly, and I think they're a really good football team. And they recruit fairly well. Gundy does a good job of getting the kids that he can get in his system when he's got to compete against Texas A&M, Oklahoma, other schools. He gets the right kids in, and they're always competitive. They're always a fairly decent football team.
They're going to win 10 games. You can pretty much book it every year.
And I'd love to see them in the. I would love to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah. Texas
is only in here because I think everybody should be paying attention to them, because I don't think they're going to do a ton this season. But they are returning a lot of guys in the offensive line. They're returning Bijan Robinson. They're returning Worthy at wideout. Quinn Ewers is probably going to be the QB to start the season. Talented young kid. I guess he was redshirt freshman. He was at Ohio State last year. He was the kid that should have been a high school senior last year. Left early to go to Ohio State. Anyhow, Sarkisian's a good offensive-minded coach. They put up some points against Oklahoma. They just couldn't hold anybody. Defensively, they just could not hold anybody. And they've got some guys there. Recruiting went pretty well fairly well last year. This year, it's absolutely on fire after Arch Manning commits. They were just landing everybody. But those dudes aren't going to be here this year.
Right.
So I think this is a great year to pay attention to Texas and not expect too many things from them, but definitely pay attention to them because as you see how they go this year, it's just going to get better and better from there as they bring in better players. And if he can get this team right here to 9 wins, watch out because I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with here in the future.
Utah Utes.
I like Utah.
Yeah, me too.
I enjoyed watching them beat the hell out of Oregon a couple times last year. Oregon just could not stop them from running the football. Rising is a kid that you look at him and it seems like he should be playing Dungeons and Dragons all day and not playing football. But the dude just puts his head down and run you over.
Yeah.
Hard-nosed player. They lost a lot of talented guys. Devin Lloyd, first-round draft pick, inside linebacker this past draft. They lost their all-purpose dude, kick returner, slot wideout, their all-purpose guy. I forgot his name. I think that the tight end's gone too. But they're returning a lot of guys at key positions like defensive line, secondary, offensive line, stuff like that. So I think they're going to be competitive in that conference. I expect Oregon to be down. I expect Stanford to be pretty competitive because they're bringing back everybody on the friggin' offense. I think 11 guys on offense are coming back at Stanford. But I still think.
Well, since we're talking about Stanford, let's just go ahead and go right into it.
I went done
go ahead.
with Utah.
Carry on.
I think Utah is poised to win that division. Probably play USC most likely in the conference championship game. They're just a hard-nosed football team. They'll run at you. They'll bludgeon you to death. And I'm not really sure some of these more finesse teams in the Pac-12 can handle that. But which brings me to USC. Excuse me. Really well in the transfer portal, getting a lot of getting the Blitnikoff winner from Pitt. Obviously, Caleb Williams came out from Oklahoma, followed Lincoln Riley. Handful of other guys they got in the transfer portal as well. Once Lincoln Riley got that job, they also landed some top recruits that maybe were looking at USC but probably headed elsewhere, and he landed them. They returned a fairly decent amount of guys, not really too many skill position dudes other than I can't remember his name, but he's the Blitnikoff winner from Pitt. So he's probably the only skill guy returning. But the entire offensive line's coming back.
Was Addison?
And a handful of guys on, Addison something or other. Handful of guys on defense coming back. And Pac-12, South, Arizona State, UCLA's lost everybody to graduation with the exception of the QB. It's a very manageable conference schedule.
Right.
Even though it's Lincoln Riley's first season, with Caleb Williams, anything's possible. I fully expect them to be in the conference championship.
If they don't win 10 games, I'd be very surprised.
Huge disappointment.
Yes. I mean, they got an outside shot making the playoffs, I believe.
They're one of my playoff prediction teams, actually. Mm-hmm. We'll have that episode coming later.
Yes, sir. Stanford Cardinals.
Stanford's bringing back, the freaking whole team, basically. Quarterback McKee is pretty good. None of these guys jump off the page at you. They're just solid football players. I cannot stand Stanford. They're my most hated team in all of college football. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, I've said it way too many times before. I want everybody and anybody to beat Stanford. I cannot stand Stanford. But I like what they're doing. They got a solid football program. They bring in, you got to be super smart to get in there for one. But they just keep bringing in some really solid football players. And I enjoyed last year. They weren't very good, so that was kind of fun for me. But I expect to be very much improved this year. Yeah. Battling Utah for the Pac-12 North Division title.
You don't think Oregon's going to be in the mix?
No, I mean, Oregon, in my opinion, is lucking out. They got Bo Nix. Down here in SEC country, we know what Bo Nix is like. I don't think he scares really any defensive coordinators because he's going to run around in the backfield for 30, 40 seconds. Yes, he made that pass against LSU, but if you watch him the last couple of years, usually those plays running around result in him tripping over his own feet or his own man and taking a 25-yard loss. He's a decent thrower. Again, wouldn't keep me up at night if I'm a defensive coordinator, but he's going to the Pac-12 where I think his skill set, he's going to do a lot better. Right. He's going to go up against defenses that aren't as talented. And his play style, running around like he's playing backyard football, is going to do a whole lot of things for him. I just think they lost too many guys. They're replacing a lot of dudes. I know they're bringing back Noah Sewell, an inside linebacker. He'll probably lead the conference in tackles. Great player. They're bringing back a couple of the guys on defense. I just don't see where the offensive firepower is coming from this season.
Yeah.
Yes, they recruited well. And since Dan Lanning has got there for this cycle we're in now, the 2023 cycle, he's landed a handful of really talented players, ESPN 150 type guys. But I just have a hard time seeing what they're going to do offensively. Offensive line last year, too, was their strength. I think these guys have been playing together for 4 years, basically, when nobody left. Now they're replacing most of those dudes. So we'll see what they got first week against Georgia. That's a massive test. If they can kind of hang with Georgia somewhat, I'll feel more confident in what they can do in the Pac-12. But I think that they're like a mid-tier team at best this year. Give Dan a couple of years.
Top 15, top 20 team, top 25, maybe.
Maybe top 25, because that gets a little dicey towards the end of the year. There's a lot of 3 and 4 lost teams on that list from 20 to 25. They might slide in there.
All right, I think that's all we got planned for this episode. We got a couple episodes planned coming up that I think you guys are going to like, but right now,
before we go, I'll just throw a kind of riff on a few more things. South Carolina. South Carolina's returning a boatload of dudes. Huge upgrade at the quarterback position, Spencer Rattler.
I agree.
Beamer had him playing very, very well at the end of the year last year. They won a handful of games at the end of the year, made a bowl game, won the bowl game, if I'm not mistaken. Playing really well. They bring in Spencer Rattler, and then they bring in the tight end. I forgot his name. Real big-time tight end transfer. Mm-hmm. So they upgraded immensely at those two positions via the transfer portal. Their recruiting isn't the best. I mean, again, you're South Carolina. You're not landing a ton of 4- and 5-star guys. You take some 3-star dudes, but they're returning one of the best DBs in the nation. Yeah. Their defensive line and linebackers, they're returning a lot of those guys that played a ton of football the last 2 years. I don't really know what they're going to do. I want to see how Spencer does under pressure. That got him a lot at Oklahoma. When you pressured him, he kind of turned into a pile of crap. But
the SEC and college football in general, it feels like a lot of teams got better this offseason through the portal. I don't know how that translates because, you're going to see Alabama, Georgia, and teams like that. They're going to be winning their 10, 11 games like they do every year. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is a year where USC, Tennessee, Kentucky take that next step.
I'm not feeling Kentucky. I know everyone's talking about Kentucky, Will Levis. They lost Wan'Dale Robinson. I know they got Rodriguez back. Rodriguez has got to be like 30 freaking years old. Dude's been playing running back forever. He's a good player. Yeah. He's a north-south runner. He's not super shifty, and I don't really think he's a big threat on the backfield. You kind of saw what the good teams did to them last year. I'm not sold on Will Levis. If you don't have Wan'Dale to throw to, I know they upgraded a little bit in some other positions, including wide receiver via the transfer portal. Excuse me. I just don't think they're going to be number 2 in the SEC East like a lot of folks are predicting after SEC Media Days. I think it's going to be Tennessee. I could be wrong, but I'm not seeing Will Levis as this like all-world, all-conference type of QB. I don't even think he's a better QB than Stetson Bennett, for Christ's sakes. I think Stetson Bennett's the best QB in the SEC East. As just an overall QB, there's guys that like Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. There's guys that are better runners. Mm-hmm. I need to see what Spencer Rattler can do against an SEC defense. But I think South Carolina just did themselves a world of favors by grabbing him. Yeah. A couple other guys.
They should win 8 games this season.
Yeah, so, I'm really expecting big things from South Carolina. I'm expecting LSU to still kind of not be all that good. They lost a lot of guys. There's nothing anybody can say to me that will convince me that Brian Kelly was the right hire for that. You got a dude from freaking Boston, Massachusetts, going down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, goes to the basketball game and pretends to have a southern accent. His accent's worse than mine. I think they're going to be average at best. I think Mississippi State's going to be pretty well. They're returning a boatload of dudes as well. If Ole Miss can figure out their QB situation, if Jackson Dart can get up to speed, which he really wasn't during the spring ball. Yeah. Ole Miss might do some things, but I'm expecting the SEC West this season to still be Alabama, A&M, and maybe throw like Arkansas and Mississippi State for that third team. Big Ten's gonna be awesome. A lot of returning quarterbacks in that conference. Minnesota, like we talked about Wisconsin, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State. Penn State's returning a ton of guys. I don't know how they're going to be because Penn State's always like flip the coin at the beginning of the season. Heads they're going to suck, tails they're going to be fairly decent. You never know. They got a bunch of dudes though that came back. Minnesota, same thing. They got a bunch of guys coming back. They loaded up some guys in the portal. I think of all the conferences, Big Ten's going to be the most exciting to watch. Yes, we all know Ohio State's going to win the conference. I mean, I don't care. They lost two of the best wide receivers to ever play the game. They just reload at that position. Was it Henderson at running back? CJ Stroud's amazing. But I think the name's Henderson at running back. Travion Henderson, I believe. Anyhow, that guy's awesome. They just reload every single year recruiting-wise. I expect them to be right back in the thick of the playoff hunt this coming season. But even that being said, I still think the Big Ten's probably going to be the most fun conference to watch because it's going to be very competitive front to back.
Right. Well,
you pulling up Ohio State?
I was going to pull them up. There's the Ohio Bobcats. They're up here.
But yeah, I guess, like I said, this whole episode was teams you should be paying attention to, and I just went off the rails there for a second, gave you guys some more of them, but I'm not saying any of these teams are going to make the playoffs other than USC. I'll go ahead and spoil it right now. I'm picking them to make the playoffs. We'll have our playoff predictions and conference championship predictions later. But those are some teams that could definitely be in the mix for conference titles. Win that game, obviously, you're probably in the playoffs. If things fall right for all these teams, I expect them to be in the hunt come late November, early December. Yeah. And here's Ohio State.
If it ever loads.
I'm fairly certain it's Travion Henderson. I might be pronouncing his name wrong.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
I don't know. The minute I walked in the door, my sinuses have just been like, It's been crazy. Anyway, my computer's been acting up. This has been like a disaster. But hey, we're making the next episode happen regardless.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, come on.
So for all you betting people out there, I'm going to mention my good buddy JB. When Ohio State plays Michigan, take Ohio State and take the points. Michigan is going to be a team I think takes a step back this year. Notre Dame versus Ohio State, that first game, which we're going to talk about that in a few weeks, the week one predictions. That's going to be a hell of a game. Yeah. I think Notre Dame's going to be better without Brian Kelly. I'm not a Brian Kelly fan. I never have been. That dude gets Notre Dame in the playoffs a couple times, get their ass handed to him. I just don't think he's all that great of a coach. I think they can make the playoffs with so many different coaches and probably maybe win a game. So there he is. No, that's not it. I can't see this far.
What's the kid's name?
Henderson. I'm almost positive it's Travion Henderson. If I'm wrong, there's probably a bunch of people watching this.
Travion Henderson.
Travion Henderson. I was right. The kid's phenomenal. 5'10", 215. And he doesn't look like that. He looks like the kind of guy that's going to take the handoff, go up the gut, and run like a 4.00 140, that kind of dude. But he'll also run you the hell over. So probably one of the best running backs in the country. And he was getting attention last year. I think he deserved more attention. But obviously, how do you do that when you got Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Olavi on the outside, and CJ Stroud. Right. Of course, the poor kid's, as a freshman no less, is going to get put on the back burner. But the kid, one of the best running backs in the country.
Well, I think that's going to be it for this episode. You guys have a good week, and we're going to have some more content for you guys coming up real soon.
Cheers, everybody. Have a beer.